What's going on, everybody? It's your host, the Sports Moose, coming at you here with episode 25 of the Thunderdome Puckcast. We've made it to the silver anniversary episode of the Puckcast, number 25. It couldn't come at a better time, of course. Few hours away from Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals. I think we all knew this was the end goal, of course, the ultimate goal, winning the Cup. But you can't win the Cup without getting to the finals, and the Lightning have made it. It's taken a couple extra months in the midst of a pandemic, but here we are, mid-September. Kind of weird to say, talking about hockey. That's not preseason hockey. Mid-September, ready to go to wrap up, hopefully, their next NHL Stanley Cup 2020 title for the Bolts. So we're here. We'll talk Western Conference. We'll talk Eastern Conference Final. Go through our bold stats and general updates and close it out with our tale of the tape with the Stars and Bolts playing for the Stanley Cup. All that and more coming up on episode 25. Haven't said it in a while. Let's hit that intro. Happy Saturday afternoon. Almost feels like we're back to normal, right? College football on TV, Notre Dame giving a beating to USF Bulls. They're looking up, and we've got the Stanley Cup Finals coming up tonight on NBC with your Tampa Bay Lightning taking on the Dallas Stars. Oh, it's just so weird to say that. Two Southern teams. Is this the first time that what we would consider two Southern teams to be playing the Stanley Cup Finals? I already know everyone's complaining, no traditional teams. Could potentially be a ratings nightmare, but let me tell you, it's not going to matter to those in the Dallas and Tampa Bay markets. And if you're a fan of either of those teams, it doesn't matter. Who cares if it's not a big market team out there? It's going to be exciting. This is going to be a great series, I think. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. As you know, if you've been listening along, we've seen a lot of downloads with the Thunderdome Puckcast, especially here during Bubble Hockey. So thank you guys so much for the support. Really appreciate that. And of course, we'll do live episodes on our Facebook page at the Sports Heap. So make sure you're looking up the Sports Heap, kind of our enterprise organization of our podcast, the Thunderdome Puckcast, of course, my project with the Sports Heap. I usually drop an episode once a week. Been doing a few live episodes right there on Facebook. This one's pre-recorded, but the video is still available both on Facebook if you like watching along, because we do have some props and some visual aids, I guess, or some graphics to show the stuff we're talking about. So if you like watching along, you can watch along on Facebook and on our YouTube channel as well. But if you like the audio chocolate, as Emrod likes to tease me, just listening, of course, on your favorite podcasting platform, Apple, Google, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Click the subscribe button so you get those pushed out to you whenever we drop a new episode. Can't believe it. 25 episodes into Thunderdome Puckcast. I'm excited. This was a project we started off at the beginning of this season, wanting to do a Lightning podcast. We've made it 25 episodes deep. We've made it through a pandemic, hopefully. And hopefully the next episode or two we'll be talking about what a heck of a season it's been. I mean, it's been a great season no matter what. Even if the Lightning come up short, would be a little disappointing. We know we've had this team ready to take the next step, the final step, and I think it's going to happen this year. Wait and see. A tough up to 7 games against a team that's really been turning it on as of late, Dallas Stars. It's going to be a tough series, but again, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Speaking of the Dallas Stars, switch over to Topic Cam, and let's talk about their series against the Las Vegas Golden Knights. Of course, Las Vegas was considered the cream of the crop for the Western Conference, right up there with Colorado And Colorado with a surprising round 2 exit in the playoffs against these very same Dallas Stars. I mean, very surprising. Vegas almost falling victim to the upstart Vancouver Canucks, who are going to be a force probably in the next year or two. So kind of a series of teams. We expected Vegas to be here. I don't think, especially with the way they've played most of the year and really in the round robin, Dallas looked down and out. They were fortunate to get through their series with Calgary. They won that one in 6, but they were about 25 seconds away from being down 3-1 in that series. I mean, what happens if they don't score a goal there, force overtime, then win it in overtime? Might be talking about the Dallas Stars out in round number 1. Yet here they are in the Stanley Cup Finals. So hockey's some skill, but also some luck. I mean, you got to get the bounces, and Dallas has been getting some pretty good bounces. Not to take away from the way they've played. They have played some unbelievable hockey. Their big names stepping up, and a few of their smaller names stepping up as well. So we'll see how they match up as they defeat the Vegas Golden Knights in 5. Not even 6 or 7. They took this one in 5. 4-1. A couple big overtime comebacks and victories, of course, to close out the series against the Golden Knights. And the question will forever remain, what happened if Fleury got a couple starts or was the number one guy? Robin Lehner, for the most part, looked good. Had a couple squeaky goals he gave up. But, yeah, I mean, you have Fleury with the overtime experience. I think there's people questioning the decision to fully go with Lehner, and Fleury getting a sprinkle of a start here and there. We talked about the controversy that Fleury's agent caused with that very graphic picture of him being stabbed in the back by a sword that said DeBauer, the coach of the Vegas Golden Knights. Had been a little bit of controversy there, but ultimately it came down to Vegas stopped scoring. I mean, they stopped scoring timely goals. They scored enough to lose, is the way I really looked at this series. Just didn't score enough goals to really put the Stars in compromising situations. I mean, 2 and 3-0 right now, becoming the most dangerous lead in hockey. We kind of joke around about that, but it's kind of, everyone's always said it's 2-0. It's kind of expanded to 3-0 with the way offense is now and momentum. Absolutely incredible. And Stars found themselves down and out more than a couple of times this series. And it just speaks to their perseverance and to the timely goalkeeping of Khudobin to get the job done against the Vegas Golden Knights. Again, a couple overtime victories, maybe a couple victories they didn't deserve to have, but it doesn't matter. Just like with the Lightning and the Islanders series that we'll talk about in a little bit, it doesn't matter if you deserved it or not. It's the end result at the end of the day, and Dallas with a convincing 4-1 victory, earning a couple extra days of rest. A couple big goals, of course, Gurianov scoring the game 4, I think, right after they had to come back in the last closing minutes of that game to force overtime. Then, lo and behold, I think it was 20, 30, 40 seconds into overtime. Snipe from the circle sneaks right past Lehner. And in the double overtime, I think, in game 5, or it might have been the closing stages of OT1, big goal for the Stars to close it out. Obvious disappointment from Vegas. I mean, I think this was where they expected to be in the conference finals, but many expecting them to be in the Stanley Cup Finals. That was Stanley Cup Finals or bust. So I'm curious to see where Vegas bounces back. Unless you're going to shore up goaltending or commit to Robin Lehner. So does Fleury find himself shipped off again? Does he take a role as a backup? I don't know. I mean, I think Lehner's proven his worth, backstopping and being Corey Crawford's backup this year, and really kind of behind some of the success Chicago had, that they were, good enough to make the top 12 in the conference to make the playoffs after the layoff for coronavirus. And he had a good year last year in Buffalo. I mean, his year in Buffalo not just Buffalo, but also in New York with the Islanders. Is that 2 years ago? I believe with the Islanders. I mean, he's played solid goal, and if you get a solid team in front of him, he's going to give you a chance. So I think that's something that, oh wow, I'm here watching Notre Dame and USF. USF almost coming up with a big touchdown right now, 38-0 Irish. Leonard's going to give you a chance to win. So I don't know how Vegas retools. I thought they had a pretty solid and complete team there. They've got the grittiness. They've got Ryan Reeves. They got your goal scorers of Patches and Mark Stone, among others. They even have great defense. I think they just got to reload and give it another run in 2020, 2021 for the Knights. They'll be back. They're built to be a perennial competitor. Well, I guess kudos to the GM work. They're coming on as a expansion squad just 3 or 4 years ago now. So great. They've made the playoffs in like the second round every year they've existed so far, at least. So that's it for that series. Of course, no big surprise. Well, a big surprise is that I think our official prediction was Vegas moving on to face the Lightning, but lo and behold, you'll see in the bracket, there's the big X for Vegas. It's Dallas moving on. Of course, on the Eastern Conference side, what a series that ended up being between the Lightning and the Islanders. Maybe a little bit closer than we thought it would be. Maybe not. Not really. A lot of those games were absolutely dominated by the Bolts. But, 4-2, and we were pretty close to going to Game 7. I mean, a breakaway save away in overtime from having a different conversation today. We would be talking about Game 7 and how the Lightning may be looking to blow their first 3-1 lead. Oh, man, it's absolutely concerning that, and I'm happy that we didn't end up there, because it would have been problems, right? You start getting the thoughts of like, oh no, here it's coming. Here comes the momentum shift. What's going to happen? Oh. And thankfully, Lightning getting it done in overtime in game number 6. So let's talk about the Lightning Islander series. Of course, I think the last episode of Puckcast was right after that huge Game 1 victory, 8-2 over the Islanders, where everyone's patting themselves on the back, feeling pretty good. I think we talked about being cautious, though, in that episode, in episode 24. You had to be cautious because the Islanders were going to respond. And, really, I think it was the response didn't come till Game 3. I think Game 2 was still a little bit closer, but ultimately, it was a 2-1 victory. It was really tight. The full response came in Game 3 when the Islanders, I would say, took it to the Lightning, winning 5-3. Vassy not having his best game of the year, of course, letting in 4. I think they scored an empty netter on that one. But other than that, I don't want to call it an aberration. It's just kind of a down game, right? Of Game 3, the Lightning absolutely owned the rest of that series. And again, I think it looked closer than it was. If you look at the stats at Game 5 and Game 6, if you look at the Corsi lines, and if you've been watching us live on Facebook for our post-game reaction shows, where it's a nice 15-20 minute chat about the game and recap and how we're feeling, and taking some questions off of chat. I show you the Corsi lines, and I show you kind of the expected goal lines, and just what I call the possession line, or the influence line. Just absolutely dominated by the Bolts. I mean, heavy dips in favor of the Bolts when you're looking at it from a 50-50% split. Just heavy possession and heavy domination curves in favor of the Bolts. I mean, they outshot them 47-27 in Game 6, and losing fingernails from biting them and being stressed out, but ultimately coming up victorious. The big goal, of course, Anthony Cirelli in the latter stages of OT against the Islanders in Game 6. So I'm thinking about the Islanders. You got to think about what they're needing. And Varlamov had a great last few games. He absolutely stole game number 5 and was this close to stealing game number 6. Again, an early breakaway, a blue line in breakaway, essentially, in overtime, stopped by Vasilevsky, save of the series right there. I mean, that could have potentially saved the series, because he knew, again, like we've talked about, can you imagine what would have happened if the Islanders won game 6? And we're having a different conversation this afternoon about, we're getting ready for game 7, and are the what ifs starting to creep into our minds? But again, ultimately, this is what we expected. We expected the Bolts in the Cup Finals. Similar to Vegas, Cup Finals are bust. And we've made it. Last step. We got one more step to go. And we've got the Dallas Stars standing in our way. Before we get to the breakdown, the tail of the tape for the series, let's talk about the touching of the trophy. Right? Game number 6. Will they or won't they? There's always that stress. The Dallas Stars, of course, not touching the Clarence Campbell. Jamie Benn, it seems like, made the decision with the entire team. Skated up, took a picture. Bill Daly came around, surrounded, took a picture. That was it. They left it right there on the pedestal. A lot of conversations if the Bolts were going to do it. It was so great to see Stammer come out. Had his jersey on, got to walk around. And it was great to see that camaraderie still of the alternate captains calling him over. It's like, hey man, it doesn't matter that you haven't played in the past 6 months. You're still the captain. Let's bring it up here. So almost immediately, Killorn touching just to put doubt out. I'm like, why are you touching it? Or was that an accident? But it was part of the plan. Killorn and Hedman both handling the trophy, and then ultimately taken by Stamkos, taken in for a celebration with the team, and McDonough as well as another alternate captain. So great to see the Bolts at least kind of going against that superstition, grabbing the Prince of Wales trophy and taking that with us. So we'll see what happens. We didn't touch it, of course, in 2015 against once we beat the Rangers in New York. No touchy there. We touch it this time. Something's going to give, right? Maybe the Bolts win the cup by touching the Eastern Conference trophy. So we will see what happens with that. And we'll see if the Stars not touching it maybe has a little something to do. My guess is it's not going to have anything to do with anything, but a little fun thing to watch there. All right. So we've done our Western Conference recap, Eastern Conference recap. Let's talk Lightning updates and playoff stats, kind of where we're at so far. And, really, Lightning leaders in a couple of categories. And I know there's some questions of how well, if the Lightning win, or if, we have a stellar performance and the Lightning don't win, who could potentially win the Conn Smythe? 3 big names, of course. Is it going to be Cooch? Point was in there until he's had a little bit of injury trouble. Does Vasilevsky deserve to be in that conversation? I think certainly Point is still in the conversation, and is all dependent on who comes to play in the Stanley Cup Final. But you could certainly make the argument, and I'd have to say after this performance in the conference final, that Hedman, I think, is the front runner now, at least for the Lightning. Got some great performances out of Dallas. I think Miro Heiskanen right now is leading the race when you're considering the Dallas Stars, right up there with Jamie Benn, if the Stars end up winning the series. But when you're looking at Hedman, he's been listed on a name with like Paul Coffey, Bobby Orr, some of the greatest defensemen to ever play the game. 9 goals in a playoff series, and we haven't even reached the final yet, with 6 helpers. 15 total points for Hedman. I think the biggest statistic, though, and I didn't know this until I looked it up today, he is at a plus 19 in plus minus rating, which is absolutely amazing. Plus 19. I think the closest person after that is Cooch at plus 15. And then that whole first line is in the plus double digits, plus 13 for Point and plus 14 for Palat. Look at the Dallas stats, because I haven't seen where their plus or minus has been. I have a couple big minuses. Jason Dixon -7. But really their highest plus minus is, we've heard about Joel Kirivanta, who scored a couple big goals for them. It's been Elysiak and Heiskanen at a +5 and +3. Of course, Dallas, the first team to make the Stanley Cup Finals, I guess, since they were keeping track of goal differential back in the 70s, or maybe since the 70s or late 70s, early 70s, that has made the playoffs with a negative goals differential. So they've actually given up more goals than they've scored. We've talked about the past few episodes of how that truly essentially is one of the issues with Dallas. Is their goal scoring is very on or off. They've been able to maintain the last two rounds with some pretty great goal scoring, but is it a matter of time until goal scoring well runs dry? We've kind of seen that a little bit with the Lightning here with the Islanders. I don't know if maybe it's just the play style of the Islanders kind of doing this glorified trap, glorified, we're going to slow you down and try to make you play our game. The Lightning forced to win a couple 2-1s and 3-2s and 4-1 games with some empty netters. But yeah, I'm curious. That's, I think, one of my concerns, and we'll see that in the tail of the tape, is where are we exactly with offense? Is Braden Point 100%? How long can we expect Hedman from defense, to keep scoring? And where's the rest of the team in terms of goal scoring? I mean, our second line, I've just been really disappointed with until Cirelli finally came up clutch. The third line kind of has dried up as well when you're thinking about Goodrow, Gord, and Blake Coleman. So see where the offense comes from. And again, we'll look at that a little bit more closely in a moment when we get to tail of the tape. So points right now, you've seen it scrolling down below in our stats window that scrolls by. Kucherov in the lead for the Bolts at 26 points. Braden Point right behind him with 25. Then Hedman in third with 15. Goals right now, it's tied between Point and Hedman, both at 9. Both at 9 goals for Point and Hedman. A lot right behind him, actually. Didn't realize that, with 8. And we all know Nikita Kucherov is your assist machine with 20 assists. So offensive stats looking pretty good there. Talked about plus and minus with Hedman leading the way. I think I want to look at maybe time on ice. Of course, we're not surprised. Hedman plays basically half the game. A face-off winning percentage with the team, and we'll look at this more closely again, tail of the tape. We're under 50% as a team. So again, we got away with it a little bit with the Islanders, because even though we sacrificed the initial possession, we were able to get the puck back, force them into some turnovers, and it didn't really matter. I think Dallas is going to be a little bit better at puck possession. So it's going to be really important that we're winning more faceoffs than we're losing against Dallas. Braden Point, 57%. You kind of wish you could take all the faceoffs. Paquette at 53% and Coleman right at 50. Everyone else under the 50% win mark. So it's really tricky there. Tyler Johnson, 44.6%. Trying to think of our dedicated centers here. Cirelli, I think, center by trade, 46.6%. It's really, really tough sledding here for a few of our guys. So we got to be a little bit better in the faceoff circle, because I think Dallas is going to be able to possess the puck a little bit more than the Islanders were able to. And I think their big play potential in terms of offense, at least, again, a little bit higher of a ceiling than what we faced with the Islanders. Look at some team stats really quick. And again, we'll go into more detail as we talk tail of the tape to compare against Dallas. But right now, power play percentage dropped down to 17.9%. We were in the kind of almost low to mid 20s. And I think we went 0 for the last 17 against the Islanders. That included 2 big double minor penalties at the end of both Game 5 and Game 6 that where we could have either iced the game late in the third or won in overtime, with the Islanders killing both of those penalties. Actually, pretty impressive showing by the Islanders. Where did they end up with penalty killing? Because again, they beat the last 16 or 17. Actually ended up at 83.3%. The Islanders did. Lightning at 83.6% on the PK, absolutely acceptable. They kind of felt like the Boston series we were giving up at least one penalty kill. We were giving up one complementary power play goal a game, and I feel like that was a trend also in the first round series. So see what happens in the special teams game. Again, Dallas coming in with a pretty strong showing on the power play, which really concerns me depending on how the games are officiated. Lightning, though, when you're looking at goals for average for the games that they've played, of course, the number is going to be a little bit different with the series being of different lengths. Over 3 a game, 3.1. Most prolific offense in the league. I guess trailing Calgary and Colorado, technically, though they're still no longer in the tournament. And only 2.21 goals against on average in a game for the Lightning. I guess in a 60-minute. Well, they're doing goals played, so that doesn't take into account the whole 60-minute deal like a goalie's goals against average would. Irish up 45-0 here at the beginning of the fourth. Yikes. Bad for the Bulls. So, kind of a quick high-level look at the Lightning stats. Again, if you've been with us during our post-game shows, you've seen the Corsi statistics. Lightning, for the most part, dominating in most games in 5-on-5 play. So I fully expect not to that degree, but it's going to be a pretty tight game with the Dallas Stars. Oh, forgot our studs and duds. Studs and duds of round number 3, like we do at the end of each round. One of our favorite players and players that maybe could help us out a little bit by performing a little bit better. I think Cirelli had a really strong series. I mean, it always helps to be clutch and score that clinching goal. But I thought he had a pretty solid performance. He's one of my studs. Victor Hedman, of course, couple goals in the series. Absolute force on defense. He just takes up so much real estate. Active stick takes up so much real estate. And of course, Cooch, he's been lights out. He's not scoring at will like he dominates sometimes during the regular season, but I'm telling you, he's been sneaky good with those assists. He doesn't get the credit for his playmaking ability like he should. We're always focused on the goal scorer, right? But it has been for Kucherov's vision and his creative plays. I mean, some of the stuff he tries to pull off is like, wow, I wouldn't even have thought to try and do a backwards no-look pass, into a low-risk area. So he likes to do high-risk areas sometimes, right? Without great risks, no great reward. But again, absolute great performance by him. One of my big studs. Palat, I don't think he's going to give me a reason to ever take down his picture. Again, maybe not scoring as much as he did in the Boston series, but his presence and really has been such a great presence on that number 1 line in the absence of Stamkos. You just can't knock the guy. And I expect big things here in the final for Palat. And the horse we rode it on, Andrei Vasilevsky, absolutely wonderful performance in this series. Other than the kind of a tough game 3 where he gave up 4, really kept us in most games. Big series, I would say, series-saving save in that the breakaway in Game 6 in overtime, and of course, giving us a chance to win in Game 5. despite us owning the Islanders in most of Game 5, I feel like their chances were still pretty dangerous. They could have, especially in Game 6, more than a couple places where they could have scored a goal, and we might have not even made it to overtime. So Vasi, Palat, Cooch, Hedman, and Cirelli, my round 3 studs. Round 3 dud, only one, and I've kind of been on Twitter on this, and I know a couple of Lightning Twitter folks are in agreement with this. And really the only dud I can think about, because even Luke Schenn came to play, a couple scraps with Matt Martin. Tyler Johnson, where are you at, buddy? What is going on with Tyler Johnson? Just a couple of notable bad plays and turnovers. Can't finish. I mean, I think he's a -4. -4, right? Let me look at the Lightning individual stats that you had in here. So Tyler Johnson's stat line for the playoffs: 19 games played, 4 goals, 3 assists. So again, successful with the first series. Really has cooled off hardcore over the last, I'd say, 8 to 10 games. 4 goals, 3 assists for 7 points. He's been a -5. I mean, shooting wise, only 34 shots on goal in 19 games. I mean, that's less than 2 a game. And his ice time has definitely been decreasing. He's down to 15 minutes a game. You almost have to consider the Barclay, Goodrow, Gord, and Blake Coleman line to be your true second line, because they're usually getting the starts anyway to set the tempo. But also, I think their ice time is a little bit higher. Yeah, Yanni Gord at almost 20 minutes, Goodrow at 18.5, and Coleman at 18. I mean, yeah, I mean, Paquette's almost getting more time than Tyler Johnson at this point. It's actually pretty crazy. Tyler Johnson, I hope you bounce back here in the Stanley Cup Final. You're one of my duds here for round number 3. And let's wrap it up, everybody. Wrap up episode 25 with our Tale of the Tape, our Bolts versus Stars preview. And of course, a lot to talk about here. If you're familiar with Tale of the Tape, you know that I go through offense, defense, goaltending, special teams, power play, penalty kill, coaching, and an overall kind of holistic view, and give the check mark or the even, if it's an even rating here. A couple controversial ratings here as you're looking. I think clear cut on offense. Check mark goes to the Lightning without question, despite the way the Dallas offense has been playing as of late. I just think the Lightning have more upside, despite what the Islanders were able to do, and despite our lack of finishing ability the last 2 to 3 games. But it's definitely been a challenge to score. Almost reminded me of the Washington series back a few years ago, where Game 6 and Game 7, we just needed one more victory and we couldn't score. Like, it was crazy how we just lost that scoring touch. Hopefully, resetting of the new series resets that, and we can find our scoring touch again. But clear, far and away, Lightning averaging 3.1 goals a game versus Dallas's 2.95. So pretty even in terms of goal scoring, but I'm going to trust the Lightning offense versus the Dallas offense right now. Defense is one of the controversial ones. Scoring them pretty even, and a little bit of this is thinking about the regular season Dallas Stars. Some of this success on defense, of course, artificial stats helped out by Ben Bishop's semi-Vezina performance, but they've played pretty well defensively. Yes, they've given up about a half goal more a game than the Lightning in terms of goals against. Of course, Lightning at 2.21, Dallas is at 305. 305 for Dallas, actually 0.8 more. So almost a full goal a game. But again, it's not about shutting down goals. It's also about making key plays and being involved in the offense. And I feel that Dallas's defensemen have been pretty active in terms of playing. Lisiak, of course, leading the way in plus minus. with +5, and Mira Heiskanen too on D. So when you're looking here points wise, it's actually Heiskanen leading the way, and he's a defenseman leading in point scoring, 5 goals, 17 assists. And then Klingberg's been underrated as well. Doesn't get a lot of the attention. Maybe that's just part of being a Southern hockey team in the Western Conference, where you have a glut of Canadian teams taking some of the attention, and your traditional teams like Colorado and whatnot getting some attention. Klingberg's been really good. In terms of shutdown, again, Elysiak is a little bit underrated. And even some play from Andre Sekera, man. That's a name. It's a household name, right? Not playing as many minutes as maybe he's done in the past. But, they have defense is a strength for him. Maybe not so much on the offensive front. They don't have a Victor Hedman who's going to score 9. But in terms of shutdown size, I think they're right there with the Lightning in terms of defensive strategy. So scored them even. Part of it, yes, maybe was I didn't want to make this series seem like a total blowout, right? Goaltending. Controversial. I know that I'm putting them even, and I'm going off of the way Dobby has been playing. Dobin has played absolutely great over the last 2 series at least. Once they finally figured out that Ben Bishop probably shouldn't play in the Stanley Cup playoffs because of ongoing injury, and they were able to commit to Godobin. He's taken the reins. He's such an experienced veteran. Finally getting his time in the spotlight. When you're looking at stats, though, Bassey, 182 on the goals against versus Godobin's 2.62. So, again, almost a full goal against average. I know. Why are you scoring them even? Save percentage, 931 for Bassey and 920 for Dobby. I know. Scoring him even because of the way the Stars have been playing around him. Bassey's potentially going to win the Vezina Trophy this year again. But Godobin and the Stars defense has really been rallying around still being here in the playoffs. And he can stay hot. He can stay hot, and hoping that the Lightning are going to be able to break through early and often. But I'm just not ready to give the Lightning the full check mark until I see them score some goals and break through Godobin and that defense. When you're looking at power play and penalty kill, clear advantage here going to Dallas. Penalty kills even, but as we know, our Lightning, our lovable Lightning, are second in the league, at least in the regular season, in terms of penalties committed. So we love that conga line to the penalty box. We have to be disciplined because Dallas has sustained basically a 28% scoring rate on the power play. So if we're committing 4 to 5 penalties a game, that's our complimentary 1 goal that we're giving away on the power play. We can't have that, despite us being about 83-84%, which is good. I mean, I'll take that any day in the penalty kill. So yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting to see if we're going to be able to stay out of the penalty box. So we went over power play right now for the Lightning at 17.9%, a pretty decisive disadvantage against the 27.3% of Dallas. PK is pretty even at 83.6 and 83.3% for both teams respectively. Kind of thinking about offense and defense, right? Shots versus shots given up. I'd say pretty close. No significant, no statistical significance in terms of difference. I mean, you're looking at the Lightning, 35.5. I think some of that has been inflated with some overtime games. Obviously, the big 5 overtime game with an 88 spot or whatever it was in shots is going to help you out there, bring that average up. And then shots against, Dallas giving up 33 to the Lightning's 30. So again, pretty even there. The big one, though, and this a little bit falls into coaching and overall as you're looking, is the face-off circle. Dallas at a even 50%, where the Lightning are hovering at 48.5%. On the grand scheme of things, that's in true numbers 1 to 2 to 3 face-offs a game. So again, pretty even. It's going to be critical that the Lightning keep it close in the faceoff circle because once again, Dallas is going to be able to control their possession a little bit better than what they face against the Islanders. It's just as simple as that. They're a better team, going to be able to win faceoffs and not turn the puck over as much. No one and dones in terms of time in the offensive zone and possession in the offensive zone. Going to be critical. Coaching, I think, right now in terms of experience, I guess we have to define experience because Rick Bowness, heavily experienced coach, an assistant for so long, an assistant on our very team. And I think he was part of the team that went to the Cup, or at least to the conference finals the last couple of years. So big respect for Rick Bowness. This is his first year interim head coach. I think the advantage still has to go to Coop and the boys in blue in terms of coaching. And then overall, Lightning are a better team. They should win this series. We just went through all the numbers on paper here. Lightning are paper champions so far. Can they get that and translate that to the rink, to the ice? I'm hoping we see it. Hoping we see it over this next week and a half, 2 weeks. And I hope that episode either 26 or 27 is talking about the amazing season, the crazy season we had that culminated with this Stanley Cup. Right. Hopefully you feel ready for game number 1 later tonight. I think 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central for my Central dwellers out there on primetime NBC. We're loving it. And yeah, just get ready to buckle in. It's going to be a heck of a series, I think. Don't be surprised if Dallas takes the first one. I wouldn't be surprised. My money's on the Lightning, both literally and figuratively, on the Bolts tonight to take the first victory and take that first step to Lord Stanley's Cup. It's been your host of Sports Moose. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook. That's really the best place to keep in touch with the Thunderdome Puckcast. We do live reaction shows after every game, and then we'll drop a video like this as part of our video podcast. You'll find the audio available on Google, Spotify, Apple, and iHeartRadio, your favorite podcasting platform. And we'll get the video up on YouTube as well. If you like YouTube, you can watch our shows. We usually pre-record or record our live shows and just kind of repost them up on YouTube. Been your host, the Sports Moose, here with episode 25 of the Thunderdome Puckcast. Thanks so much for listening. Follow me on Twitter at Moose_TSH. And we'll see you next time here on the Thunderdome Puckcast. Go Bolts!